Lucy, we're here because we're looking at the yellow vests. These are people that, through your time with Tommy Robinson, you've come across some of them. So I just wondered, your take on them. Who are they? What do they want?
I'm trying to figure that out as well, and it's kind of hard because I'm not actively involved in the yellow vests. I wouldn't say that it's kind of a hard one, and I feel just sorry in advance to any of them who maybe I might say the wrong thing. But from what I gather, they want Brexit. They are kind of sceptic of globalism. I think they seem to be worried about Islam, grooming gangs, FGM. There was a leaflet that went out. They're against homelessness for veterans, pensioners living in poverty, and from what I can gather, quite a few things, maybe too many things, one could say.
And what do you say? Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the far right at the moment.
Yeah.
And I know that yellow vests, in some areas, people are saying this is just another manifestation of the far right. What would you say to that?
To me, far right kind of means, I think, something different to what it might mean to your average person watching telly now. Because I kind of have moved within these circles now for 2 years, and to me, far right is quite a specific sort of, I would say it's the sort of people that wouldn't really go out and march, really. I know that there are, from what I've gathered, there are kind of people from National Action and EDL who have sort of decided to align themselves with the yellow vest. So I have seen that, and I would say that they're groups that I know that, because I used to work with Tommy, and I know that he got quite strict on things like that when he was the leader of the English Defence League. So I'm not sure. I would say that, maybe there are sort of more hard right elements, but they're not really... I've never really come into contact with them myself, and I kind of worked closely with Tommy for 2 years, so I'm quite... I suppose, I just don't see it as that far right in the grand scheme of things. It's hard to explain, I don't know, I could go into it.
Why not?
Well, to me, far right is people who traditionally believe that sort of there's this Jewish conspiracy, that the Jews own the media and institutions and the mainstream and everything, and they're trying to push degeneracy on the general population. They want to introduce feminism to break down the stable kind of mother and father traditional family, turn the state into the nanny so that it's looking after the children. It can indoctrinate them into LGBT kind of propaganda, and that's kind of what the far right thinks. And they also think that issues to do with Muslims and Islam is almost like a false flag, that it's a red flag to a bull, that everyone's worried about this, but actually that's not what we should be worried about. We should be worried about demographic replacement. So the far right is thinking more in terms of sort of ethnicity and also culture, and also, I don't know, also weirdly traditionalist kind of Christian values, and I've kind of met extremes from both sides, so I can say, well, that's what the far right thinks, and actually some people on the far left also have some similar, would agree with some of those points. So anyway, so when I think far right, I think that, and then I see James Goddard and the yellow vests, and I see people who are sceptical of the sort of issues that Tommy talks about. But having met them and having been a part of sort of, I don't know, having my life be kind of involved with those people for a couple of years, I wouldn't say that they fit into that category of far right. They're kind of very proud of coming from multicultural areas. They say very openly that they don't care if you're black, white, gay, straight. They don't care. Their problem is culture.
They do have an issue with Muslims, it seems.
They have an issue with Islam, but there's this whole argument of, well, is Islam and Muslims are separate things, and it's I don't know, sometimes there's a lack of nuance, because, I don't know, I never had a problem with Muslims at all, but I have some problems with Islam. But I met a Muslim once who, we were chatting, and we'd spoken online before, and he came up to me, and he said, I'm Mo from online, you're Lucy, you can punch me if you want. And I was shocked, and I was like, I don't want to punch you. And he was like, oh. And then we had a conversation, and it was absolutely fine, and he was like, I just think Tommy says these things and it goes too far, and I'm like, I agree, it's oversimplified, and can wind people up, and it's very emotional. But by the end of it, he hugged me twice, and I felt so, like, sorry that this man thought that I wanted to punch him. So, like, I did...
Can you understand why he did think that?
I suppose to me it's because I don't go out and say things. I just listen to what people are saying, and I put it through my sort of middle-class funnel of, but I know what they actually mean because I've met them in the pub, and I've kind of, like, you know, I've kind of done my own investigating to try and figure out what these people are like, and I just think, they're just not very verbose, shall we say. Like, they do say things in a very simple way, but I've seen how they behave, and I don't think that they're, like, thugs or scary or in that sense. But then I see
when you say who are you talking about?
I would say people like the people in the yellow vest movements. I would say there's probably a big chance that some of those people have been on the march that I've been on with Tommy, and that there is probably a crossover with Tommy Robinson supporters. So, like, in some respects, I see those people and I think, well, they're kind of part of my movement, or I was part of their movement, or I kind of see that kind of come into play. So. And I know that the people that were in our movement were, largely speaking, they were nice people. They were just trying to find a way of expressing themselves that would quite often kind of cross into, like, difficult territory. It's really difficult. It's a minefield talking about this stuff. It really is.
And when you say difficult territory, you mean mainly things to do with Islam?
Yes, totally. How do you broach the subject of that you've grown up in a town your whole life and suddenly everything's changing and you can't talk about it, and when you do try and talk about it, you get labelled a racist, and I don't know, I wouldn't know how to deal with that, especially if I've only got the education that I have and everyone's laughing at you as well. That's another problem that I don't like, and one of the reasons that I joined is because as a middle class person I would sit around and hear people, the way that they talked about the working class with disdain, and I thought that's wrong, that rubbed me up the wrong way. So there is like a snobbery there, and I think we do need to own up to it. I think there's snobbery in lots of ways, and I think particularly with the working class we sort of go, oh, look at them, they're so stupid, they just think this, they just think that, and it's not always that simple. It's just that it sounds like they do, but I don't know.
Do you think, because obviously what's often said is, when I film these marches, I film the yellow vests, you're middle class, you don't understand, this is a working class street protest movement, is what they say.
Yep.
Do you believe that is what it is?
Well, I suppose it kind of is. I think the majority, people in the yellow vests especially, seem to be working class, don't they? For that one, but for the wider movement, I would say it's a mixture. I would say there are a lot of middle class people, I think like me, and maybe like you as well, who are sort of just watching on YouTube, watching from the sidelines and kind of going away and thinking about it and thinking, what do I think about this protest or about this event that's happened? Maybe someone's gotten abroad, James Goddard shouting Anna Soubry, what do I think about that?
What do you think?
What do I think? I think the way that she was treated was like horrible. I didn't like to watch it, and same with Owen Jones. I just don't like to watch people being treated like that, and especially when they're just trying to go from A to B, and it's just like, just let them, walk from there to there. And I suppose, like, in a way, it's like I'm used to being shouted at and being attacked and everything, and so I can understand people shouting at you from afar or wanting to film you. Like, I suppose if you're an MP, then the way things are, people are so high tension and they can get viral video and everything, but they forget that you're a human in a way, and that you do have rights, and that she does have the right to just go to work, kind of thing. And like Owen Jones has a right to go and get his bike and go home. And as much as you might disagree with what they say, just respect that, and then maybe they'll kind of. But then on the other hand, both her and Owen Jones then double down and say, well, this is fascist, these are fascists, and this is where Brexit has brought us. And I think, well, that's not true. So now you've got these people that are behaving badly, and these people that are calling these people very, very, inflammatory names. To call someone a Nazi is a big deal. It's a big deal. Even just to call someone racist is a huge deal. It's very insulting. So that's also a problem that I see, that I wish Anna Soubry and Owen Jones and people like that would not throw around these labels as much, because they are, I think, fueling the fire as well, in a way, and people are getting so defensive.
And in terms of, because obviously it was James Goddard who called her a Nazi, and then I have seen things on other people's social media, like Tracy Blackwell, this idea that the EU is a Nazi, construct. So they're throwing around these terms. Can you understand why people then say they're behaving like the far right or they are the far right?
Yes, I can, because that's how it comes across. That's how it comes across. If you're watching the news and you see, MP attacked by people acting like thugs. I mean, if you were there, you would see there's a woman and there's a couple of idiots shouting, and she goes in, and it's just a bit of a really embarrassing, cringy thing. That if you know James and if you know the people, you just think, oh, for God's sake. Like, as someone that's been in these movements, I'll speak to people on the phone and go, bloody hell, did you see what he's done? It's so embarrassing. Because we know that James is actually kind of, not threatening. He's, I don't know.
So would you defend his behaviour?
No, I wouldn't. And I've tried to speak to, I've said, James, this is, I've met him once. We've spoken back and forth before, and I did message him around the time just saying I would steer away from this behaviour. It's not good. It's everything that we're against. Because I've been attacked, my friends have been attacked, violently attacked by left-wing extremists. So we cannot accept that behaviour from the other side. And I think where I find it does get a bit hypocritical is that the sort of far left do get away with it in a way. They don't. Nobody stands up and says, right, the anti-fascists have gone too far now. We need to stop this. This is wrong. You're our side and you're letting us down. That doesn't happen. But I think that needs to happen on the right wing. And so I would say to James Goddard and that lot, I would say just leave people alone, because we are better than that.
How did you get involved? How did you get involved with Tommy Robinson? What was it that made you think, yeah, this is it, this is my guy?
People dead in the streets of London. My friend in the restaurant. My friend was in the restaurant hiding while a woman was having her throat slit, the next room. And those things affect you. And it felt like I was in a horror film. And then this viral video of Tommy comes out, and at the time I kind of was vaguely in touch with him and Kaylin, the person in the video in Westminster with him. And I thought, this is, probably my fault as well for being so wound up, but it felt like Tommy was the only person that was saying, here's why this is happening. It kind of felt like everyone else, mainstream-wise, was just kind of like, don't worry, it's under control, it's fine, and then there's another one, and then don't worry, it's fine, and then there's another one, and you're just like, no, we need answers. And Tommy was going, it's because of this, they read this magazine, and this has been distributed this many thousand times in Britain, and this is where they're telling them to target, and this is why. And I'm like, well, there's some points being made here that affect national security that I think are relevant, and you're just going, he's a racist, this, that, and it's like, but
Is he a racist?
No. And at that point I was like, even if he is, it doesn't make anything he says less valid as well. Maybe this is important, we should look into it. I don't want to see anyone else dead. It was as simple as that. In terms of him being a racist, no, but I do think Islam is a very difficult subject, and sometimes I find that it's so easy to oversimplify it, because I've got a friend who's from Muslim heritage, and every time there's a terror attack, her dad would say, oh, it's those bloody Salafites, whatever. Even people that are practicing the faith of Islam are divided on who's to blame for what attack and why. And, for someone like...
But obviously the number of people who carry out these kind of attacks is a tiny proportion of the number of
yes,
people
but
who
it
are
did,
Muslims in our country.
That year, or I think it was, 2016, 2017, it felt like there was this massive horror film going on.
Many people would say Tommy Robinson was using for his own purposes.
That's a hard one, isn't it? Because I don't really think that he wanted attacks to happen, if you know what I mean. But at the same time, you go out and you talk about it and you get followers from it. But those people are following you because they think that they're learning information that they might not learn from the media. Because there's this huge distrust of the media. They think that they want to keep us all compliant and just, bags over our heads, not knowing why things are happening. And I think when you're kind of being told, you're kind of being... I did feel like we were being told not to worry about it, and that Islam is a religion of peace and all that, and I just kind of didn't believe it anymore.
What do you think now?
I think it is more complicated than that. Because I never hated Muslims. That's another thing that most of us would say. I don't really know if I've met anyone that said, I hate Muslims. And I certainly never have, and no one I've ever worked with has, and Tommy never has. But,
I just had a look. I mean, he has I don't know, in the past put around jokes that say things like, what do you call a Pakistani that don't smell? As if, or as if.
Yeah.
Or, you know, he's liked things where they talk about Paki Muslims and animals. They've met, he's put something on about talking about a time bomb in terms of a Muslim woman having a baby.
Yeah. His Twitter account was a mess. That was his like old EDL Twitter account, and he used to like throw around all that kind of stuff, and like he just thought it was really funny at the time, and I'm sure his friends did as well. I don't think he thought at that point that he was actually going to become this kind of global like anti-media superstar that he is now. I think at the time he genuinely just thought it was funny. No.
Why not?
Because you're allowed to make jokes about other people without hating them. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of where I come from. You can make jokes about gammon all you like, but that means that we're allowed to kind of, if we respect each other, then we'll joke about each other. That's kind of where I come from. And like with Tommy, like I'd be on the road with him, the amount of people that are not blooming, they're not your average supporter. They come up, all sorts of like people from all sorts of backgrounds, and they're just giving him the nod, the wink, driving past us, doing that. He's got so many supporters that aren't white, and people just don't know that, and they don't. And I saw it like firsthand, and it's frustrating. Like, yeah, he said some crap stuff. I agree. Said some crap stuff. I don't know what to say.
And what was it for you that? Because I think the reason why you left. Well, tell me why you left, because I think that then ties into things I wanted to ask you to do with the yellow vest. But yes. You know, yeah. What was it for you that made you decide I'm not going to be part of this anymore?
I got the sack because of an event where basically there was a miscommunication. A Muslim guy was invited to come and speak at this free speech event. For some reason, Tommy thought that he wasn't invited anymore, so he comes on stage, or he comes to go on like backstage and get ready for his speech. And Tommy thought that he wasn't going to be speaking. So, you know, I had to go and tell him, I'm really sorry you're not speaking anymore. And basically, a lot of football lads kind of went up and attacked this gentleman and his two kind of camera people. And yeah, I went and tried to protect them, and I saw the really rough side of our movement. It's very small, I would say that. I'd never seen it before, but I was disgusted. I'd say it was just as bad as the far left Antifa, because I always thought that we were better than that. But we do have violence. I think we have violence in the extreme fringes, or maybe it's just people that just have their reasons for it. They thought that this guy was a bad person because he'd basically tried to put out Tommy's address, which, you know, means that he has the police coming around and he has people threatening his children and his wife and threatening to go and shoot up his family and stuff. So those people, I think, were thinking that, and they were thinking this guy's an enemy. I don't know if they were thinking, oh, he's brown, but either way, he wasn't, you know, he wasn't very popular. So anyway, a few people came over and tried to have a go at him. I went over to try and help. We ended up getting kettled out. One guy, his cameraman, got like a punch in the back of the head. One of our police guys got punched, accidentally elbowed in the face. It was a total mess. And after that, I got the sack.
What for?
For supposedly being the person to have invited him. Like above orders kind of thing. Like there was this rumour put out that I was the one that wanted this guy to speak, and that it was my fault because I invited him without asking anyone.
Is that true?
No. So anyway, so I ended up getting the sack, and I had a few months of people thinking that I was Satan incarnate, and yeah, so I kind of saw the bad side of the movement then as well. But again, it's kind of just as bad as the far left. So it's a really weird one. I seem to have gone to both extremes and been hated by both extremes at this point. But I've seen the bad and the good side of the Tommy lot, and it's kind of it's like eye-opening. But I don't know. If it's just words, it's fine. I mean, I've only had words coming at me from the Tommy lot, but I've been physically attacked twice by the far left. So I'd say that's worse.
And one of the things you talked about since is the sort of monetizing of this and how you monetize it. And obviously that's interesting in the context of people like James Goddard who are also trying to monetize it. You know, for you, what did you learn from your time with Tommy Robinson about, you know, how to raise money, what raises money?
Well, I was annoyed after leaving, so I kind of thought, well, there's a lot of crowdfunding going on, and I suppose it's me being an annoyed, kind of disgruntled producer or whatever. But I was kind of thinking, we're not giving these people really bang for their buck. We're not going out and investigating things that we ought to be. I think, if we're the anti-media, then we need to go out and we need to, actually find some good source material and go out and work our butts off. And I didn't feel that we were doing that enough. And yeah, I just feel very responsible for people sending us a lot of money. And as far as
were people sending lots of money?
Oh, loads.
Like how much?
People would buy us cameras. People would donate to our fund for equipment, and they would buy us all sorts. Cameras, laptops. They were buying us all this top of the range stuff, and so we had all this stuff to work on. It was great, but and then around that time is when I ended up getting the sack as well. So I kind of I looked back and I was just like, we're not. I don't know. We weren't working as hard as we could. I think we owed those people a lot more, maybe.
And when you say people, what kind of people? What kind of people were giving?
People from up, down, left, right, all over the country, other countries, probably Australia, America, Europe. People saw Tommy as like a beacon of hope, someone that could tell them what was actually happening, air their stories, talk to them as human beings. Yeah, I don't know, and obviously this people kind of conflate populism with the far right quite a lot. They say there's the rise of the far right across Europe and across the States, and it's kind of...
Is that not true?
No, I wouldn't say it's...
Why not?
Because I've been with these people and they're not like, again, in Germany, for instance, with Pegida, they're little old grannies. And they go there and they stand and they listen to some speeches and they wave a flag that says they're against the EU, and then they all pick up their litter and go home, and you wouldn't have known that anyone was there. They're like normal German people that are just a bit pissed off, and then you go to the other side and you've got these crazed idiots with black balaclavas, and they're literally like bricking people, throwing bricks, like throwing bottles with wee, like going and attacking people, finding people's addresses and like vandalising their property and stuff. And then you see these other people, and you think, well, it's topsy-turvy land. I don't see them as violent. The people, I don't think, apart from that one incident with where I got the sack, I don't really think I've seen that much violence. I've seen gobby people going and shouting back at the far left, which is easily done if you're wound up and you've got all these people shouting Nazi at you. You're going to go over and you'll be probably a bloke with a pint and a bloody flag, and you'll go like that, or you'll do it like the thing that really annoys me is the most knee-jerk thing you can do if someone shouts Nazi at you is to do a pretend Sieg Heil. That's what people do. I've even wanted, like one time I was so angry I was thinking, I just want to piss them off, because it's a horrible thing to be, and you just want to just antagonise them because they're being so antagonistic, and it's like taking the bait. And just being like, and then, so you get this front line, the police are there, you've got the far left shouting that you're all Nazis, you're all this, then you've got a load of guys taking the bait and going, yeah, we're this, we're that, and it's just a mess, and then that's where the press go and take their pictures, and then the rest of the march, which is like, again, like, largely like family friendly, and just a load of people that are just like, we're sceptic about Brexit and the EU, we're worried about FGM and Islam, and I don't know, like women's rights and gay rights, and like it's kind of a bit more liberal than it's kind of penned out to be, and that's annoying. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry, it's a lot.
Do you, in terms of, because just to go back to the money, is it, as I understand it from what you said before, there's a sort of way of, there's a sort of tried and tested way, essentially, that Tommy Robinson is aware of how to get people outraged enough that they'll donate money. Is that something that you?
I don't think it's like doing it on purpose. It's not like let's find some poor victim and do a sob story and like milk the cash from our subscribers or something. But I just think, I don't know, people would give us money regardless. They just wanted to see us able to do what we were doing, so. But then it's just easy to kind of fall into the trap of doing sob stories, I suppose. Like I wanted to be doing really investigative journalism. And we kind of do that to an extent, but I don't know. I just felt like we could be doing more, so I was frustrated.
And in terms of, obviously one of the things that we were talking about that we came across as a result of looking at the Yellow Vest was this Tracy Blackwell and the other family members whose sons died in this awful way.
Yeah.
I think you were aware at the beginning, much earlier than I was. You were aware of that story.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us from your perspective kind of how you found out about it, whether you're aware of how Tommy Robinson found out about it, what happened?
Well, it wasn't my project. I was kind of towards the end of working with Tommy around that time. So he was working on it with the rest of the team. And I just remember them talking about it and saying, I don't know, it seemed a bit, I'll be honest, I was a bit confused. Like, when I kind of looked at it, I was a bit confused, and I saw lots of YouTube videos, and I tried to make sense of it, but I was just getting a bit all over the place. I was like, I don't really understand, but I'm sure the video that they put out, like Tommy's video, will make more sense of it. It kind of did, but I don't know, it was a bit kind of like, at the time, when I first heard about it, I was like, I don't really know what this is, and then me and Tommy had a big split, and then I sort of went off and was dealing with other stuff, so I didn't really hear about it. But it then transpired that Tracy Blackwell thought that I'd sabotaged this this project of Tommy's. So I kind of ended up getting a lot of flack for this thing, and I was trying to work out what happened. And I don't know, I found it, I just don't know. I feel very sorry for Tracy and the other two mums, and I've met her, and she actually seems really nice. I feel terrible for what's happened to her son. But I'm not a policeman. I don't know about the law. I haven't looked at the case properly, so I kind of feel like it's very sensitive, and that I don't really want to like comment on it and say much, because it's horrible, the idea of having lost a child. Where do you start with that? It's a horrible topic to have to talk about.
I mean, you'd probably be aware that lots of people have already reported and said that the likes of Tracy Blackwell were being used by Tommy Robinson, that he had kind of wound them up about this being a terrorist incident. And I'm sure, I think the family totally deny that. They say that's not the case, that he didn't do that. But I just wondered, from your perspective, would that be a fair thing for people to say?
I don't think Tommy wound them up. I do remember at the time when Tommy was going back and forth and meeting them and working on the videos. Meanwhile, I was probably doing something else. But we would see each other often doing our thing. And he truly believed it. He said, I really like this family, I really like Tracy, I want to help them. That was his motivation.
But believed it was a terrorist attack?
He wasn't. He was trying to figure things out with Tracy. He was trying to take the case on, look at it, and say maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think what my criticism would be, that if you were going to, say if you wanted to meet Tracy Blackwell and do a Newsnight about this, I think you would probably have to remain a bit impartial. And I think Tommy
would have to be very impartial.
Very impartial, and I think maybe where the problem is with this kind of alternative media thing, where people can just go on YouTube and say, I'm a journalist, and just make a video or documentary, is that Tommy, I think, is, he cared about the family, and he wanted to help, and, he went and met them, and they formed like a friendship and everything, and I think that's where, if you are a proper journalist, it's like, what are you? Are you an activist or a journalist? And I think that's maybe where, like, I would say there's a criticism to be made, because I think maybe he felt that he needed to help them, to make them feel better. Because, this lovely family is grieving, and he wanted to kind of help. And I think that's sort of very kind, but also slightly naive, if you're going to look at something as serious as that, as, someone's on trial for murder, basically. It's not just like, you can't just pretend to know about that stuff. So yeah, I know it's a bloody tricky subject, like really like difficult one to kind of talk about.
I suppose in terms of how his videos get out there, he's an incredibly popular man in the way that lots of other people might make those kinds of videos and not get out there. So the fact that Tommy Robinson stands up and says this could be a terrorist incident is going to reach a lot of people.
Yeah, he says it could be, and it's like, well,
I mean, that's potentially very damaging.
I know. Because you could put out a documentary saying, well, maybe the Earth could be flat, or maybe this could be this, or could be that. There's a way of reporting, which I think you have to say, if you're saying, I'm a journalist now, I've decided I'm a journalist, I don't believe the BBC, I'm going to be the new news. You still have to maybe look up and see what journalists do, and kind of the steps that are made.
You're saying he didn't do that? Do that?
No, it was very fast-paced, so things like that would go out the window, which is a shame. in my opinion, because it's led to more damage down the line. Now Tracy's being accused of this and he's being accused of that, and it all looks like a bit of a sort of I don't know, a bit of a, what do you call it, like a slap up job or something. But it's also, the tragedy is that you've got these grieving mothers now who are kind of being paraded around in the press. So yeah, it's horrible. Sorry, Tracy. She's lovely.
It just reminded me, actually, to go back to the money thing, just in terms of the yellow vests.
Yeah.
You know, since the Anna Soubry incident, then I think some of the PayPal type areas where James Goddard was trying to raise money have shut him down. He's now seems to be on the donor box, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
When I spoke to him about it, he said, look, I can't get another job, so this is my job, and if people want to give me money, great. I don't ask for money, although actually he is asking for money. I mean, what do you think about that? And is this sort of activism, as they call it, monetizable? And if so, how does it work?
I wouldn't say that kind of activism is monetizable. I think James is right. You basically hand over your right to kind of a normal job. Once you go out and make your face known as a kind of right-wing activist, then you are kind of a pariah, and you're easily Googleable, and you know, you can easily get smeared as being extremist or whatever. So yeah, it's very hard to get a job. I know that James has been struggling in his personal life since kind of going and doing these rallies and speaking out and stuff. He's kind of gone through a lot behind the scenes. So I think probably he's just I'm guessing just needs money just to kind of get by and to just do whatever he's doing. I don't know if like maybe just basic kind of, I don't know, basic spending. Like that's what I would imagine with James. I don't think he's like, I don't really know what they would be funding, you know, because the yellow vest is just go outside and put a yellow vest on. You don't really need much money for that, do you? So yeah, I don't know. I think in James's case, I think it's just he can't get another job and he just needs some way of surviving.
So would there be any comparison between what he's trying to do in terms of raising money and what Tommy Robinson does in terms of raising money?
Yeah, because Tommy actually had a big sort of production team that would sort of do the videos, go out, spend money on travel, for instance. Like sometimes we would go to Germany or Poland or wherever, and we were employed. You know, we were employed by him to help him with, I don't know, ideas for videos or where to go or talking to people and stuff. And it was like a full-time job and a full-time team. So in that respect, there was a bit more of a reason for there to be money behind that operation, because we wanted to bring people kind of high quality work. So yeah, whereas James is very DIY kind of activist, isn't he? Like he's just got his phone and I don't know, his Facebook. But I do find it quite funny how quickly his means of income are taken away. Where you do have sort of people on the other side who are sort of actually calling for violence, and they're fine.
So do you think he's been treated unfairly?
I think in the grand scheme of things, it does tend to lean towards favouring people on the left. Definitely. Yeah. And, I mean, look at all these reporters that have just been fired for BuzzFeed, and they're sort of complaining about how they have to go onto PayPal now, and it's like, well, yeah, like, welcome to our world. You know, you kind of lose everything. If you want to go out and talk about these issues, right-wingy issues or far-right issues or whatever you want to call them, you're signing away your right to a normal life in many respects, and you will lose a lot.
But he's not able to have a normal life because he's, you know, harassed, potentially did a, I can't speak. The reason why he can't get a job, if that's the case, is presumably because he behaved in the way he did outside Parliament, potentially a criminal offence, and led to a lot of ire on all sides for what he'd done. Yeah, so in a sense, it's of his own making.
Yeah, he did a bad thing. He behaved very badly. But I think he still deserves to eat and, you know, put a roof over his head. That's where I stand on it. And people on the other side get away with far, far worse. It doesn't say that what he did was any better. What he did was bad. But people that Owen Jones supports actually physically beat people up. And he happily supports them, goes and attends their rallies, and, you know, that's fine, apparently. You know, he can write for The Guardian, and he can go on, you know, get invited on Andrew Neil, and he has a career. You know, he's doing just fine, and yet, you know, James does this one stupid thing. And now he's kind of like, as far as everyone's concerned, he's now Tommy Robinson 0.2. and he's not. I mean, I don't know if you've spoken to him yet, but he's actually a lot more different and like more calm when you sit down with him, and it's just frustrating because I think with activism, on both sides, like just generally activism, it tends to bring out people's personal issues. And I think that's maybe some of what you might be seeing with people like James and Tracy, is that they're going through something in their personal life. They come up across, maybe, I know a police officer pushed James, right? So he shouted back what he shouted, which was, again, horrible. He didn't think it was horrible, whatever. There's this horrible altercation, and probably James has kind of got all these other bad things going on in his life, personal stuff, and then he's got suddenly this person that's done this thing to him, and he can go for them. It's horrible. It is horrible, and it brings out the worst in people. But the same thing happens the other way around. It's just one of those things. There were people who came and attacked me and Tommy, and one of them was an ex-homeless guy who had a history of drug addiction and stuff like that, and he didn't know where he was or what was going on, and he was trying to ask Tommy for a fight or something, and I could tell there was something not right about him. And that's the problem, just in general at the moment. You've got these high tensions, you've got people joining forces on either side, and you've got some people that are not well, and they are kind of being exploited in a way, and they're going out and they're behaving terribly, and in some cases reflecting badly on people who do agree with them, but wouldn't agree with the way that they're acting.
And just in terms of, because do you see James Goddard as potentially emulating Tommy Robinson? I mean, do you think he thinks there's a vacuum there, something's happened, Tommy slightly disappeared?
James is adamant he's not copying Tommy, but he is kind of doing live streams and going out and got arrested and stuff. It's kind of similar to what Tommy's done. I know Tommy hasn't trademarked being arrested and going out and being an activist, but it's quite similar. But I don't think he's seen the vacuum and gone, there's a Tommy-shaped hole. I just think there is a Tommy-shaped vacuum, and now that he's not really on the scene anymore, it's kind of sucking in all the loudest people and in some respects the badly behaved people, and it's now this open goal for people to kind of go and get this viral video that they want, or to kind of make a name for themselves and all that kind of stuff. And it's rather annoying for me to see it, because I thought, for all of Tommy's faults, he's actually quite good. He's quite good at managing a crowd. He goes on stage and he says, right, don't do this, be careful, do that. He's been doing this for 10 years, so he at least knows, just be careful, don't be horrible to the police. We don't have a problem with the police. And now he's gone. It's like a free for all. It's just.
What does that say to you?
It's just really annoying.
Annoying how though? What do you mean annoying?
Because I know these people. I know some of them, and it's like I just know that so many of them. Like I don't think that they're scary. They're not scary. They're just daft. They're just dafties, and they mean well, lots of them. And now they're all getting called far right, and it's kind of this thing of the rise of the far right, fascist, extremist, this, that, and the other. And I think it's just bad. It just looks bad, and I wish people wouldn't even be on the street at all. To be honest, like on either side, I just kind of wish we could take it off the streets, because it's usually ugly, isn't it? Like, it's just not very nice seeing people arguing like that with each other. It doesn't help. But
and you say that Tommy vacuum. I mean, what's happened to Tommy Robinson? He's
I don't.
Quiet.
From what I gather, I think I can't really say, because I'm not in contact with him. But I've heard that he's not having the best time. I think he's always under threat of the Osmond warning, which means that obviously your house or your family are kind of under direct threat. So the police come to your house and say, we've got intelligence of people online saying they're going to come and get AK-47s and shoot up your house, kill your wife, kidnap your family, all that kind of thing. So from what I gather, he's been dealing with that. And I don't know, like, I've seen a couple of videos he's done, but he's been quite quiet, I think. I have to wonder if this has all taken its toll on him after prison, and if maybe he's kind of just wants to, I don't know, kind of stop for a bit, because I just think he's, I don't know, just seems a bit damaged after prison, to be honest. From what I've seen of him, he looks a little bit shaken, so maybe he just wants to stop putting his family through it.
And do you, in your time with him, or whatever you've heard since, in the links with UKIP, how early did Gerard Batten and him start having these links? Were you aware of them?
We asked Gerard Batten to come and be a speaker at the Day for Freedom, which was the big event that we did, free speech event. Up until then, we had just been following, because, I mean, we did follow, like, the news cycle, and obviously we followed Nigel left UKIP, and then Henry Bolton took over. We thought Anne-Marie Waters was going to win, who's a friend of mine, and yeah, Henry Bolton came out of nowhere. We were like, who's that? And then there was a scandal with him. Gerard Batten comes in, so we kind of knew the Batten was around, and then at some point we just asked to do an interview with him, and I don't remember when it was, but I think it was around this time last year. He said yes. We went and had a chat. Tommy and him did an interview, and then I think we just said, do you want to come and do this this free speech event that we're doing? And he said yes. So as far as I know, that was the first time they ever met, or really, and it was just, we were just looking for people that wanted to talk about free speech outside Whitehall, so we thought Gerard Batten might be quite a good person to do that.
And do you think UKIP is the natural home of many of the Yellow Vesters and Tommy Robinson supporters? Is that?
No, I'd say it's a bit of a mixed bag actually. I think James Goddard actually is not the biggest fan of UKIP. I think he's more conservative, I think. But yeah, not really. I think UKIP is a bit splintered at the moment, to be honest. And I think in some respects it doesn't take itself as seriously as maybe it should. So I'm not really that bothered about it, to be honest.
And I mean, you talk about free speech very clearly, about that being your kind of driving force in terms of why you got involved. And I definitely take that on board. I suppose, did you soul search? Did you find it difficult to reconcile that with the definite sense that you get that, you know, if I turn up at these marches, or if you look online for very long, you know, people are othering Muslims. They are tarring all Muslims with the same terrorist brush. That is what's happening, and it does make a difference to how people perceive normal, hard-working Muslims who live in our country.
It's like one of those questions that you could sit around and talk about for hours, isn't it? As opposed to just like like a short segment. Because I think, well, yeah, maybe people do that, but I don't want to take away their right to do that, if you see what I mean. They might think that, and it's like, well, shouldn't they be free to express that, and then Muslims or non-Muslims, whoever the hell wants to talk about it to them, should be able to. You know, like, I kind of feel like, well, what are we really saying? Are we saying that they shouldn't think that?
Well, essentially, they're saying all Muslims are terrorists. That's the impression you get, and obviously all Muslims aren't terrorists.
Yeah.
So
but are we saying,
why are we saying? Why are they saying it?
Or are we saying that we should change the way they think?
Well, if it's not true,
yeah,
and if it leads to Islamophobia, people fearing Muslims,
yeah,
then surely that is a problem.
I don't think it leads to it though. I think it's like people already think that. If they think it, they already think it. It's not going to lead to more Islamophobia. They're going online and saying, why think this about Muslims, right? That's not going to make other people go, oh yes, he's right, you know, blah blah blah. It's not really how it works. Normally when people say things like that online, they're the opposite, that they're a pariah. People start saying, all right mate, saw that Facebook post, a bit worried about that, like you shouldn't be saying that. You know, like there is a kind of society structure where people do actually call each other out quite a lot, and they say that's not okay, that's not okay. So in a sense, I think the online world, I think, is kind of self-governed sometimes, but people are going to be, the thing is, people are going to be racist online. People are going to be racist online to all races. Like, all races are going to be racist to other races. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm just like, is it just part of the human condition that people are going to speak that way about each other, to each other, with each other, and there's nothing we can really do to control it, you know? Like, I'm kind of in this place where I'm like, well, you know, people think that all Muslims are terrorists and that's bad. People think that those kids from America should have their schools shot up because they're white and they're wearing a MAGA hat, and they've believed this thing. That's not true. What do we do about that? You know, it's the same issue in a way. Like, it's not true, that's not true.
Or people believe that the police have covered up a terrorist incident on our streets.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to start with it. That's the thing. I'm not like an expert. I don't have the answers, but I just, yeah, I don't think hearing people speak like that way online kind of adds to Islamophobia kind of thing. And Islamophobia has always been a word that I've been a bit like unsure about myself, because it just kind of strikes the wrong chord to me.
Why?
Because it does tend to get used to kind of stifle debate. It does. It
Debate
gets
about
used.
saying Muslims are terrorists, or
No, debate about saying I don't like Islam. So, Anne-Marie Waters says on, when was it, Question Time a couple of days ago, I don't like Islam because I'm a gay woman and under Islam I should be killed or raped. So I don't like Islam. Thank you very much. And then a woman puts her hands up and said, well, that's just typical. According to you, I'm a terrorist. And it's like, well, no. It's gone from like 0 to 10. She's allowed to say that and say, well, you're not allowed to be gay in Islam. That's true. Lots of Muslims would agree with you. But to say that's Islamophobia, that completely wipes it away. That says, doesn't matter. That's Islamophobia. I don't know. I think it's a tough one. It's a real tough one. I don't know. We should be able to talk to Muslims. We should be able to know that people, I know that people aren't terrorists that are Muslim. As far as I'm concerned, everyone knows that. Most of the people in this movement know that as well, and Tommy knows that. But maybe we need to make it clearer or something. I don't know.
Do you accept that there are people who have platforms, who include Tommy Robinson and Anne-Marie Waters, in fact, but there are people who have platforms, and even if what they say isn't overtly racist or isn't overtly anti-Muslim, the fact that it sort of is on the edge then does dehumanize a whole group of people, and that is a problem for our society.
I think for a lot of people, myself included, we forget to add what's implied. And what's implied is that we don't think that all Muslims are X.
See, that isn't implied to most people listening
to it. To us on the right, I think maybe where we could improve and be better is that we don't speak like that or think that of Muslims. And I think maybe that's where there's a massive gap that's not being addressed. We go to the pub, we're not talking, it's not as if we're doing this our bit to the camera and we're all like, oh, la-di-da, we just don't like Islam, not Muslims, and then we go to the pub and talk in racial slurs. That's not what happens. We genuinely believe that there's a problem with terrorism, there's a problem with FGM, and that it's not all Muslims, and we just know that. We just assume that everyone
FGM
else
isn't a Muslim thing, is it? Christians do.
Well, can be a cultural thing. It's a kind of crossover. There's things that I don't understand at all. Some things might be to do with a certain community from a certain country or a certain religious practice that's also practiced in other religions. I don't know. So, another thing is that lots of us are not experts, but we see something, we want to challenge it, and we feel like the mainstream media isn't challenging it enough, and then we jump in, and then sometimes we say things that are sloppy, we say things the wrong way, we say things that are offensive.
But other people say that actually it's deliberate. On the part of Tommy Robinson, it's deliberate to just teeter on that edge, to flam other people up.
No. He's just, I'll be totally honest, he's a bit of a hothead. He is a hothead. He goes on these rants, and he winds himself up as well. He just kind of goes on this big tangent, and he's got all these people messaging him going, Tommy, this is happening to me, this is happening to someone I know, and this is going on, and he's got all these people relying on him, and he's getting wound up from all of this stuff that's going on, and it's coming across in this live stream that he does, and it's winding other people up, and you're like, yeah, Tommy, you're right, and stuff like that, and you get really emotional, and it's all part of the great storyline, of this great big Brexit thing, and both sides think the other side's the baddie, and but he's not the sole person that does that. Both sides are doing it, But I do
Brexit has nothing to do with it.
No, it doesn't. At the moment, Brexit seems to. It's funny that Brexit has made things so partisan. It's like all these other issues. Suddenly you're on that side. You must think this and yada yada. But it is funny how Brexit's kind of been mishmashed in with this kind of talk about left and right and religion and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of it's kind of quite similar to the kind of Trump and Hillary, kind of one or the other. But again, that's not representative of what it's actually much less nuanced than what's happening on the ground. But I would say that people on the right, I think, we just need to make things like that a bit better known. And I don't, again, that man that thought I wanted to punch him, maybe we need to remember that there are people watching it who think he's talking about me, no one wants to think that. So, and actually Tommy did tell me that back in the day he went to get his hair cut just before an EDL rally, and a Muslim girl working in the barber shop, cutting someone's hair, said, "I've got to go home soon because there's an EDL rally and I'm scared." And Tommy was sitting there sort of like, didn't realise that he'd made this girl frightened.
How could he not realise that?
He felt bad because he doesn't think it, because he goes around thinking, well, yeah, of course I don't hate Muslims, everyone knows that. And no, it's as far as everyone's concerned, the most evil man in Britain, but he's not. He's
what?
He's actually all right. He's actually quite nice once you get to know him, but
when he's not calling people barbarians.
Yes, well, he's I don't know what to say about that. He's got a really horrible old Twitter account, I agree.
I'm really interested in Poland just because it's not a place I'm very aware of.
Yeah.
And then I was aware of this Independence Day march, and then suddenly most of the people that I've sort of come to know, the Goddards, the Tracy Blackwells, the Sharon Binkses, the Justice Women, they all seem to have gone to Poland last year on the Independence Day march. Can you shed any light on why that would be?
Well, I met James and Tracy at that march afterwards. We had a pint together to talk about what I mentioned to you before about this mix-up where Tracy had thought I'd done something and so we met, had a pint, and I was surprised at how nice James was as well. Like, he's actually okay. Like I said, he's very strange person. He's very self-deprecating. But he's much nicer when he's calm. He's just, anyway.
But what were they doing there?
So,
why have they gone to Poland?
Polish Independence Day. We have a friend of ours who's Polish, who we met. He was interested in Tommy, and we did an interview, and then we went out there to go and see Polish Independence Day. We were learning about the history of Poland and why they march, and I think, generally speaking, people are quite interested in the kind of the sort of pride in their country. I'm quarter Polish as well. My grandfather was Polish, and I sort of found it quite interesting as well, kind of learning about sort of how they feel after post-communism, how they feel about some of the issues which I think, generally speaking, people are against globalisation, I think, generally speaking, and there's this kind of resurgence of people that are interested in Christian values. So, of course, Poland, to them, it's like, oh, well, that's an example of a country where that's kind of, the general theme.
So that's why they went?
I think probably they went because last year when we went, they probably saw me and Tommy went and did a video, and they thought, "Wow, that looks good." It's quite cheap to get to Poland, so I think they probably just wanted to go and have a look.
It is. I mean, it's a well-known. I mean, last year or the year before last, it was even more of a kind of neo-Nazi thing than. This year, I accept that there were, huge numbers of just nationalists, but there was also, it is known as a place that gathers
of course it
far-right
because of you.
Well, that's what happens. That's what happens there. It's not because of me and the media. I mean, that is what happens there. So it's an interesting place to choose.
I literally saw 20 men with some sort of logo on there. They had shields. They had we called them larpers, dressing up. The first time I went, I saw these guys with shields and a what's it called? Like a thunderbolt. And Tommy was like, they're the Nazis. We don't like them. So I'm like, okay, right, leave them. That was it. I didn't see anything apart from that. So that's the thing. You've got thousands of people, and then you've got these little. Yes, there they are. I mean, it's embarrassing, but
So you're saying that nobody who goes there that you know is obviously none of them are interested in that, but they are interested in the sort of nationalism.
Maybe even just national pride. I think people saying yes, we're Polish and we're proud and we're. We're not under communism anymore. I know they really struggled under that, so they're happy about that. They do have, it's not all perfect over there. I think lots of people on the right, they kind of have these idealised views of countries that have got it right. So they look at Poland and they say, well, they haven't got any terror attacks, so they must be doing something right. And it's like, but there's also kind of massive upheaval in the background of their political structure where people are trying to pass bills in the dead of night, and there's distrust among politicians. So it's not all the bed of roses over there. And people will say, same with Tokyo, there's no terror attacks in Tokyo. And it's like, but people are sleeping in pods and working 70-hour weeks or whatever. So there's, again, oversimplification of that.
And would you say that there's no terror attacks in Poland is related to there's not very many immigrants in Poland?
Maybe.
There's no Muslims in Poland.
Maybe.
And is that what attracts people to go to the march?
I don't think so, but I did see there was a Britain First interview where they went over to Poland, and they kind of said that they liked it because it was a very Christian country. So yeah, that's probably like part of it.
And do you think that's a fine thing?
No terror attacks is always good, but I'm not really an expert on immigration. From what I gather, the Poles got a lot of slack for being over here. It's funny. So they were kind of the immigrants over here, weren't they? And now they're being asked to come back because apparently there was a politician that we spoke to that's saying, I want to bring the Poles back, so that they can come and thrive over here, make our country like a better place, more thriving place. I don't really know about the Muslim thing because they had a massive left-wing march when we were there, or sort of left-wing that was pro-immigration, and it was sort of similar to the anti-fascists we have over here, but they were also anti-communist, which is quite funny because they just don't like communism at all. But yes, there is. It's a weird one.
Because, you mentioned that this year you met up with Tracy and James Goddard, and along with them this year in Poland, they went along with some of the members who are now part of what is the Yellow Vest movement. Yeah, so, they've got, like, for example, Sharon Biggs, Justice for Women, and then there are people who surround and support them in a video that they've done for Unity where she's spoken about the Jews overtaking Poland, like how the Muslims are overtaking the UK in a video that we've got.
Is she that old lady? That older lady?
Yeah, but and then there's other people in the Yellow Vest movement who made references to Poland in this way, in a positive way. So,
yeah,
what would you say? That. Yeah, what would you say to something like that? These are actual words. She actually said that.
Was she in an ITV undercover doc?
Katie,
no.
Did you sort of address this?
Yeah.
So, for example, with John he's part of the Yellow Vest in Manchester. They were having this conversation on Unity Radio.
Right. So they were having a conversation on Unity Radio, which essentially she was explaining about why she was in Poland. She was saying because she met a guy and he was a Polish guy while she was over there, and she was talking to him, and he was explaining to her about how the Jews were taking over Poland, and she said he explained to me the way the Jews were taking over Poland, the way Muslims are taking over our country. Do you have a view on that? What do you think? Is a lot of this driven by an idea that Muslims are taking over Britain?
I don't know about taking over Britain, but I think that's a way of saying it, isn't it? By saying, I suppose. Sorry, I'm trying to middle classify what I'm assuming people mean when they say the Muslims are taking over Britain. I would assume that it means that you've got areas which are now majority Muslim, where, say, probably white working class Brits are a minority, and I would assume that culturally that would probably change a few things as well. So, for instance, maybe, the schools in Birmingham where they have call to prayer and things like that, maybe you see a lot of women wearing, head coverings and full burqas and everything, and you would probably get, I would imagine, the white working class, or probably just the working class in general, because I know that there are lots of different races within kind of the sort of right-wing movements, saying, well, they're sort of taking over. This was once looked like this, and now it looks like this. So they would say, well, they're taking over. So I suppose that argument is, what, is it demographic? Is it cultural? But, I suppose most importantly is, well, is it true? Is it happening? Is there a big dramatic shift which is permanent, and what does that mean for the people around it, in it? How are the Muslims going to get treated differently because of it? It's not their fault. So how do we deal with this cultural shift? And I suppose that's kind of where I come at it, and I see people speaking that way, and I just, from all my experience, just think okay, what do they mean? Because I don't want to stop them talking like that, if you see what I mean. If you just say, oh, you can't say that, that makes it worse. Then suddenly you're oppressing them, you're silencing them, and you're validating all of their kind of thoughts, and then it becomes conspiracy, if you see what I mean. So it's easier to address it.
And how do you address it?
Just like that. Just like what I just did, to try and be okay. And yeah, again, I don't know. I would feel very sorry to see, like, I don't know. I suppose you'd imagine like a little old lady, little old granny, been living her whole life, years and years and years, seen the area grow up, all the kids grow up and leave, and then suddenly everything's different, and all the people are different, and maybe you don't speak the same language as you, and you feel scared, and you don't, nothing's recognisable anymore, and you miss how it used to be. I think that's probably what's happening a lot, and that's the more human way of looking at it, instead of saying that somebody is racist, which is just such an easy way to just shut them up. And people are hurting, I think, and things are changing, and everyone needs to address that, including British Muslims or whoever. I don't care who wants to talk about it. It doesn't, nobody should be the other. We should we should just move forward together and kind of look at healing these divides, because otherwise, I just hate to imagine that we're going to have horrible violence in the street movements or things like that. I'm worried about that. I think it's a horrible thing to imagine happening.
That's one thing I should ask you, because somebody said to us, at the moment, these street protests, they're very small. It's not a great many people. But if they're not listened to, or if more people join them, or if more people feel that their position isn't being heard, and that's when it becomes dangerous. I mean, do you have a fear? You were just voicing it then, but how much of a fear do you have that the kind of people who surrounded Tommy Robinson, who followed Tommy Robinson, the kind of people who are surrounding the Yellow Vest, but also more widely, that they will be joined by wider street protests, and where do you think that would lead?
I don't really think I'm as worried about street protests, because, like, hand on heart, I would say, again, sorry, James, but seeing the way the Yellow Vests behave, I think quite a lot of people will watch it and go, it's not for me. Like, I don't think you're going to get, like, a Gilets Jaunes uprising in the UK anytime soon. And I think, that's quite kind of a good thing for the internet to kind of show that, and to see, well, actually, it's a little bit of a shambles, and, like, I just wouldn't want to put my name on it, personally. I still agree with lots of things that they say, fine, but I just don't, but I'm more worried about, people in areas that are kind of, that don't feel that they're being listened to, and that see the conversations around these topics being stifled, and feel more and more as if they are just being completely forgotten, and that their opinions don't matter, their lives don't matter, and they're basically, people are just waiting for them to die out, and just, I don't know, it must be a horrible place to be, to feel so. I mean, I went and worked for Tommy. I'm quite lucky. I live in a nice middle class area. I can go home to my nice village, my house or whatever. But there are people living in areas which are riddled with crime and poverty and things like that. So I worry about people like that have nothing to lose, and who just, I don't know. I'm worried about violence. I don't know if we'll see it, but I do feel like it's kind of one of those things that's kind of bubbling under the surface, and and I'm worried that the less we talk about this, the more we stifle it, the more we tell people, if you talk about this, you're racist, you're a fascist, you're Islamophobic, that's only going to breed more of it. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you see what I mean, this rise in the far right. So we need to kind of, both sides need to shape up, in my opinion. We need to stop calling everyone a fascist and trying to shut down debate, and we need to stop harassing people in the street and, trying to get these videos and these live streams out of it. We need to kind of step back from each other a bit and actually think about things properly, because it could get ugly.
I think Tony Robinson said this as well, but certainly James Goddard has said, if I could get every Muslim immigrant who's arrived in the last 12 months out, then they should go.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Oh. James, I knew you'd ask me this, and I had to think about that. I was like, what do I think about that?
Do you agree?
No, I don't agree. I think I'm like, well, does he have a right to say that? Does he have a right to write that status and upload it? And I kind of think he does. He has a right to say, I think this about all these people, but it's not a very nice thing to say, you know, and people have a right to say, well, I don't like you. That's okay.
So when does it become hate speech? When do you think it becomes a criminal offence? When do you think it becomes something you can't say? Is there anything you can't say?
Yeah, incitement. If James Goddard says, I hate all Muslims, I think they should all be deported from Britain. I don't want a single Muslim in Britain, right? Horrible thing to say. I don't really see James Goddard being Prime Minister anytime soon, or having any kind of like power, so I'm just like, it's just a guy saying something. If he says, I want you to go and get a knife and stab every Muslim that you see tomorrow, like, go for it, lads, do it for Britain or something, that's incitement. That's him telling people to go and do a bad thing. And that would be an arrestable offence, in my opinion. I think that would be arrestable, wouldn't it? I don't know. That would be a very bad thing. I'd be like, what the hell? He wouldn't do that. But his opinion at that time of writing, that status, was that. And it's just like, well, James, that's, you know, not very nice. But, you know, there are people on Twitter, like I said, that said the Covington Catholic school should be shot up, and they're still online. So I was like,
just to come back to the beginning, this is a very end question for me anyway, just to come back to the beginning, you know, you said it was terrorism, it was the terrorist attacks that kind of led you into joining Tommy Robinson. Do you think it would be better if there were no Muslims in Britain?
No. No. I haven't got a problem, really. I think, one thing I will say, I think if you've got these working class people, right, it tends to be working class, and the voice of the working class is always going to be coarse, right, so you've got to give them a bit of leeway. You've got to say, look, they're saying things that we might go, oh, what a terrible thing to say, or whatever, like over a glass of champagne, but like they are expressing themselves and have every right to do so. And I think if you've got, like I said, if you've got these areas that are changing at such a rapid pace and changing everything, then, you know, let's listen to them and try and find a solution and try and figure out how to, you know, how to make everyone happy. I know that's probably impossible, but people do feel just completely left behind and forgotten. And, you know, if people are worried about, like, even being demographically replaced, if they're like, gosh, in the next 100 years there's going to be 30% white Britain, whatever people think. I know that lots of people think different things, and I'm not like an expert by any means. But if that's kind of if that's what's being said, then surely the best way to sort of calm that down is to actually look at it and say, well, is it true? You know, let's work it out. Is it true? How do things? Because populations go up and down. You know, some things aren't black and white, and you've got people going on the internet, getting wound up, thinking something, and it's like, well, let's just like hang on a sec and just find out, because like maybe it is true, maybe it isn't, and if it isn't, then fine. You know, everyone's happy. But yeah, I just think there's so many subjects of like race, culture, religion that are worthy of being talked about. But I think we have to give people a little bit more of a break with the fact that they sometimes speak in a way that we deem as like crass. Yeah.
And just I had another thought, sorry, which was, you know, in 5 years, in 10 years, where would you, based on having worked with him, where would you see Tommy Robinson?
I don't know.
He's not. Is he going to be? Is he likely? Do you think he's likely to be a political leader? Do you think he's likely to kind of try and get into politics?
No. He's got convictions. He can't. And I don't think he really wants to. I think he's. I don't know what he'll end up doing, but I think he's one of those people that just, he has a way with words, and he's very charismatic, but I do think he needs to maybe take a step back and have a think about some things. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about politics. I mean, like, touch wood, but I don't think we're going to see him as the Prime Minister anytime soon.
And you wouldn't want him to be?
I really wouldn't know.
Why not?
Because I don't know, he wouldn't know how to sit at his desk properly. Need like a tailor for his suits. So, I don't know. He's a child. I should probably answer that a bit better.
Maybe. If you've got a better answer. I mean, why would you
makes work? I don't know. You find it boring? I don't know. You'd probably just fire everyone. No, it wouldn't. I don't think that's a danger at all.
How influential, or you know, what are the links between the DFLA and Tommy Robinson? How influential have they been in his rise? But also more broadly, the links between all these different organisations. people seem to pop up in different ones. I mean, it is the sort of, is there a lot of cross-fertilisation between these different?
Yeah, I mean, you'll get loads of different movements. I'm sure there are people at DFLA that also support Yellow Vest, that also support Tommy, that also support the big Brexit betrayal march. You know, there's definitely a crossover. The DFLA were a split from the FLA. They were the Football Lads Alliance, and then there's a split, some internal politics, which you'll get a lot of with these street movements, is internal politics. As far as I'm aware, they were all just, a lot of them were like fans of Tommy, as far as I can see, and they would come and support him and go and march with him. And I think now and again, you know, backstage they would say, oh, I'll be your security if you want, or I'll help you get so-and-so from A to B, or look after this area, or something. They would just offer stuff like that, but they weren't like instrumental to him or anything like that.
What was the best thing about working for Tommy Robinson and the worst?
The best thing for working with Tommy is getting to see this kind of hidden Britain, which is actually heartbreaking. Seeing, I don't know, some of the people that reach out to us were in so dire straits, you know, and yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of people that feel forgotten, and it was really like humbling to work with them. But some of the worst things working with Tommy was that he's stubborn little git. I don't know. Yeah, sorry, I got a bit teary there.